Let It Be was the final studio album from the greatest rock band of all time, the Beatles. It was released on May 8, 1970, just a month after they had officially broken up as a conciliation album for the fans. The title track was a beautiful farewell of sorts, and it included several other amazing songs such as Across the Universe, I'm Me Mine, and I've Got a Feelin'. The album in general was favorably received, but its pacing and tone was strange and somewhat off at times. It makes sense because the album was recorded more than a year before, at the beginning of 1969, during the Get Back sessions featured in the Peter Jackson documentary, as the successor to the White Album and as a return to form, but was scrapped after tensions were on the rise and George Harrison quit the band. They instead turned their focus towards creating a final record, which culminated in Abbey Road, and is the true final Beatles record. Because they had so much extra material, Let It Be was what Phil Spector came up with out of those Get Back sessions. It was awkwardly mixed and released, but with the proper vision and mixing, it could have been one of the Beatles' greatest albums, if not their best. Lennon and Harrison asked Phil Spector to mix and master the album. He added grandiose orchestral passages to Across the Universe, Let It Be, and The Long and Winding Road, which horrified and offended Paul McCartney when he heard them. On many of these Get Back session tracks, especially The Long and Winding Road, Paul envisioned the Beatles' sound stripped back of the excesses on Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album. Many people, myself and McCartney included, feel that Phil Spector almost completely removed the subtlety of these songs in an effort to create one last amazing Beatles album. They're not bad songs, but they feel forced in the mix. They also released a documentary of the same name to accompany the album, which used only 80 minutes of what would become Peter Jackson's 9-hour-long incredible docuseries Get Back, to manipulate the sessions into looking like the Beatles were maliciously breaking up. In 2003, over 30 years later, Paul revisited the album and remixed it to be closer to what he had envisioned back in 1969. They completed Let It Be naked as a sort of director's cut, removing the orchestras, remixing subtlety in the instrumentation, and rearranging the tracklist to be closer to what Paul originally had in mind. This version of the album and mix are frustratingly better than the original in almost every way. The understated versions of songs like The Long and Winding Road and Across the Universe are vastly superior to the originals and are clearly what the band was going for in the first place. The track listing is just better all around and makes the flow of the album much smoother. In the original, they put Let It Be in the middle of the album, followed by the weird and annoying Maggie May. But in the naked version, the album ends with a beautiful run from each main songwriter, I'm Me Mine, Across the Universe, and finally Let It Be, a perfect and obvious closer. The naked version is a great example of less is more, and it's just such an ironic lesson to learn about overproducing and doing too much from an album called Let It Be. The original version is still a great record, but Let It Be Naked is one of their best projects, and subsequently one of the best albums I've ever heard. If the other Beatles could have put their differences aside, understood Paul's vision for this project, and hunkered down through a difficult time, it could have been their best album. However, there were so many more nuanced elements involved in the story of the Beatles at that time. I'm just glad we eventually got the 2003 Naked remix, because it's awesome and I would highly recommend it to any Beatles fan who hasn't heard it yet. Thanks for watching. For more content like this, hit like and subscribe.